The knife glinted under the flickering streetlight, rain cascading down the blade as three men cornered her against the alley wall. Malik's breath caught in his throat. He'd been cutting through this back street to avoid the main road traffic, his engineering textbooks heavy in his backpack. When he heard her scream, sharp and desperate, cutting through the downpour like broken glass. "Please," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't have anything valuable." The largest man laughed, a sound like gravel scraping concrete. "Your father has everything valuable. And he's made a lot of enemies, princess." Malik should have kept walking. Every survival instinct his mother had drilled into him since he'd arrived in Seoul 6 months ago screamed at him to turn around, to pretend he'd seen nothing, to let Korea's darkness consume itself without him. But his feet moved forward instead, his voice breaking the moment before his courage could. "Hey, security cameras everywhere here," he shouted, pointing wildly at the building corners, praying they wouldn't notice half of them were broken. "Police already called." The men spun toward him. The girl's eyes went wide, reflecting the neon signs from the main street, pupils dilated with pure terror. She was young, maybe his age, with rain-soaked hair plastered against porcelain skin and designer clothes that looked more expensive than his entire year's scholarship. "Walk away, African boy," the knife wielder growled. "This isn't your business." "Maybe not," Malik said, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his jaw. "But it's about to be everyone's business when those cameras go to the news." He pulled out his phone, holding it up like a weapon. "Already recording. Should I post it now or wait for you to leave?" It was a bluff. His phone was nearly dead, and he was shaking so badly the camera would capture nothing but blur. But the men hesitated, exchanging glances, calculating risks. Seoul's back alleys had eyes everywhere, even in the darkness. The girl seized the moment, shoving past the closest man and running straight toward Malik. "Run!" he shouted, grabbing her wrist as she reached him. They bolted together, feet splashing through puddles, the sound of cursing and pursuit echoing behind them. Malik's lungs burned as they rounded corner after corner, his backpack slamming against his spine with each stride. The girl ran faster than he expected, her hand gripping his with desperate strength. They burst onto a busy street, neon signs and crowds swallowing them immediately. The men didn't follow into the light. Malik pulled her into a 24-hour convenience store, both of them gasping, dripping water across the linoleum floor. The clerk looked up from his phone, annoyed but unsurprised by the dramatic entrance. "Thank you," the girl breathed, her accent polished, each syllable precise. "You saved my life. Are you okay? Should we call the police?" Malik asked, still catching his breath. Her expression shifted immediately, something like panic flashing across her features. "No, no police. Please." She glanced at the store window, scanning the street outside. "I need to go, but thank you. Really." Before he could respond, she was moving toward the door, adjusting her wet jacket. Something silver fell from her wrist, tinkling against the floor. A charm bracelet, delicate and clearly expensive, with tiny symbols he didn't recognize. He bent to pick it up. "Wait, you dropped." But she was already gone, disappearing into the Seoul night like she'd never existed at all. Malik stood there, the bracelet cool in his palm, wondering what exactly he'd just stumbled into. The charms caught the fluorescent light. A piano, a bird cage, a tiny lock without a key. The clerk cleared his throat. "You buying something or just making my floor wet?" Malik bought a coffee he couldn't afford and walked home through streets that suddenly felt more dangerous than they had that morning. His apartment was a shoebox in Sinchon, shared with 2 other international students who were already asleep when he arrived after midnight. Malik changed into dry clothes, laid the bracelet on his desk, and tried to study. But his mind kept replaying the moment, the girl's terrified face, the way those men had mentioned her father, the word princess dripping with threat rather than endearment. He'd come to Seoul with such clear dreams. Engineering degree from one of Asia's top universities, internship at a major tech company, send money home to Lagos where his mother sold fabric in the market and his younger sisters needed school fees. No distractions, no complications, certainly no involvement in whatever darkness that girl was running from. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the knife, heard her scream, felt her hand gripping his as they ran through the rain. Morning arrived gray and cold. Malik's roommate, Chun from Beijing, was already making instant noodles in their tiny kitchen corner. "You look terrible," Chun observed cheerfully. "Late night studying or late night girl?" "Neither. Long story." Malik poured water for coffee, the bracelet still on his desk visible through the open door to his sleeping space. "Is that women's jewelry?" Chun leaned in, squinting. "Did you finally get a girlfriend and forget to tell me?" "Found it. Someone dropped it." "Expensive someone?" Chun whistled, examining the charms. "This is real silver. These engravings, they're custom work. Someone's missing this." Malik knew. That's why he'd brought it home instead of leaving it at the convenience stores lost and found. Some part of him wanted an excuse to see her again, to make sure she was really safe, to understand why she'd been so afraid of the police. The university campus stretched across a hillside in northern Seoul, modern buildings rising between traditional architecture, gardens bare in the November cold. Malik had a full day, thermodynamics at 9, material science at 11, lab work until 4. He tried to focus, but his attention kept drifting to the bracelet now tucked in his jacket pocket. Between classes, he walked through the arts building, a route he never normally took. Music drifted from one of the practice rooms, a piano piece so melancholic it made the hallway feel colder. Malik paused outside the door, watching through the small window. It was her. The girl from last night sat at a grand piano, her fingers moving across keys with the kind of skill that came from years of training. She wore a cream sweater and dark jeans, her hair pulled back, looking nothing like the terrified person he'd rescued and everything like she belonged in this expensive building with its polished floors and acoustic-perfect walls. She played with her eyes closed, lost in the music, and Malik saw something that made his chest tighten. Even in the beauty of her performance, she looked impossibly sad. Like the music was a language for pain she couldn't speak out loud. The piece ended. Silence filled the hallway. Malik knocked before he could overthink it. She turned, and recognition flashed across her face, followed immediately by what looked like fear. "You, how did you find me?" "I didn't. I'm a student here. Engineering." He stepped into the room, pulling the bracelet from his pocket. "You dropped this last night." Her hand went to her bare wrist, eyes widening. "I thought I'd lost it forever." She took it from him carefully, like it was made of glass rather than silver. "Thank you. Again. I seem to keep saying that to you. I'm Malik, from Nigeria." "I know," she said quietly. "Your accent and your courage last night was very Nigerian of you. Rushing in where you shouldn't." He smiled despite himself. "You know Nigeria? I know bravery when I see it." She fastened the bracelet back on her wrist, each charm settling into place. "I'm Hana. No last name." Something shuddered behind her eyes. "Just Hana. It's better that way." "Better for who?" She stood, gathering sheet music from the piano. "For you, actually. Last night shouldn't have happened. You shouldn't have helped me, and you definitely shouldn't have found me today. But I did. And those men mentioned your father. Are you in trouble?" "Real trouble. Every day of my life," Hana said, so softly he almost didn't hear it. Malik walked back across campus, his engineering textbooks feeling heavier with every step. Chen's words echoed in his head. Expensive someone. The bracelet was custom silver. The guards wore suits that cost more than his scholarship, and Hana had said just Hana, like giving her last name might put him in danger. G. The guard had called her Miss G. Back in his apartment that evening, Malik did what any engineering student would do. He researched. One search term, G family Seoul powerful. The results made his blood run cold. Chairman Ji-hoon, real estate empire, political connections, and buried in English-language articles about Asian organized crime. Suspected ties to Korea's most powerful criminal syndicate. Money laundering, extortion, violence hidden behind corporate boardrooms and charity galas. One article included a photo from a business event. And there, barely visible in the background, was Hana, younger but unmistakable, standing beside a man whose eyes looked carved from ice. Malik closed his laptop. Outside his window, Seoul glittered with a million lights, beautiful and merciless. He thought about his mother's warnings before he'd left Lagos. Keep your head down, study hard, don't get involved in other people's troubles. But it was already too late for that. The moment he'd run into that alley, the moment he'd taken Hannah's hand and pulled her towards safety, he'd crossed a line he hadn't even known existed. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was in Korean, but his translation app made the meaning brutally clear. Forget her. This is your only warning. Malik stared at the text, his hand trembling slightly. He should be terrified. He should delete the message, throw away any memory of last night, pretend he'd never met a sad girl who played piano like she was confessing sins to an empty room. Instead, he found himself thinking about her eyes when she'd taken back the bracelet. The way she'd said, "Thank you," like those two words carried the weight of years. Like kindness was something she'd forgotten existed. Another message arrived. This one from a different number, just 3 words. Please be careful. No name. But he knew it was her. Malik didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk, the threatening message glowing on his phone screen, and made a decision that his logical engineering mind knew was stupid but his heart had already committed to. He wasn't going to forget her. The next morning, he found Hana in the same practice room. This time, she wasn't playing. She sat on the piano bench staring at her hands, and when she looked up at his knock, her eyes were red-rimmed like she'd been crying. "You got the message," she said. It wasn't a question. Both of them. Malik closed the door behind him, knowing the guards were probably watching from somewhere. "Tell me the truth. All of it." "Why?" "So you can run faster." Her laugh was bitter, broken. "That would be the smart thing." "I'm not that smart, apparently." He sat beside her on the bench, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Your father, Chairman Ji-hoon. I looked him up." Hannah's face went pale. "Then you know what he is. What I am." "You're not your father." "Aren't I?" She turned to face him fully, and Malik saw something savage in her expression, like she was trying to scare him away. "I've lived in that house my entire life. I've watched him destroy people. I've eaten dinner paid for by money that came from threats and violence and fear. I wear clothes bought with blood." "Malik. So tell me how I'm not him." "Because you're sitting here crying about it instead of enjoying it," Malik said quietly. "Because you play piano like you're trying to apologize for existing. Because you warned me to be careful even though staying silent would have been safer for you." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily. "He owns this city. He owns the police, half the government, every shadow where bad things happen. And he owns me most of all. I'm his only child, his legacy, his property. Do you understand what that means? It means you're trapped. It means anyone who gets close to me gets hurt." Hannah's voice cracked. "It means I can't have friends, can't have a normal life, can't have anything that's mine. Everything I touch turns to ash because of his name." "What about what you want?" The question seemed to stun her. She stared at Malik like he'd spoken a foreign language. "What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me." Before Hana could respond, the practice room door burst open. Not the suited guards this time. 3 young men in designer streetwear, led by someone who looked like he'd walked out of a magazine shoot. Perfectly styled hair, cruel handsome features, eyes that assessed Malik like he was an insect. "Hana," the man said, his voice smooth and cold. "Your father sent me to check on you. He's concerned about the company you're keeping." Malik felt Hana tense beside him, her entire body going rigid. "Minjae, I'm fine. Just practicing." "With him?" Minji's gaze locked onto Malik, and something dangerous flickered in his expression. "Does Chairman Ji know his daughter is spending time with scholarship students from Africa?" The way he said Africa made it sound like a disease. Malik stood slowly, keeping his voice level despite the rage building in his chest. "I was just leaving." "No." Hana stood too, stepping slightly between them. "Minjae, This is none of your business. Everything about you is my business. Min-jae moved closer, and his two companions blocked the doorway. Or did you forget about our arrangement? The engagement your father and mine agreed to when you were 16. The words hit Malik like a physical blow. Engaged. She was engaged. Hana's face flushed with anger and shame. An arrangement I never agreed to. An arrangement that treats me like property to be traded between criminal empires. Criminal empire? Min-jae laughed, but there was no humor in it. Such harsh words, Hana. Our families prefer business partners. And soon, you and I will make that partnership permanent. He looked at Malik again. So whoever you are, whatever you think is happening here, it ends now. Hana belongs to me. I don't belong to anyone, Hana said, her voice shaking with fury. Malik's mind raced. Engaged to another Mafia family. Guards watching her every move. A father who controlled everything. And somehow, impossibly, Hana was still standing here defending him, risking whatever consequences this would bring. Listen carefully, Min-jae said, addressing Malik directly now. I'm going to be very clear because you seem slow to understand. If I see you near her again, if I hear you've spoken to her, if you even look at her across campus, I will make sure your scholarship disappears. I'll have you deported so fast you won't have time to pack. And if that doesn't work, he smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd hurt people before and enjoyed it. Well, accidents happen to foreign students all the time in Seoul. Are you threatening me? I'm making you a promise. Min-jae pulled out his phone, showing Malik a photo. His stomach dropped. It was his apartment building. Another photo. His mother's market stall in Lagos, taken recently. See how easy it is to reach the people you love? Even across oceans. Hana gasped. Min-jae, you can't. I can do whatever I want. He pocketed his phone. That's what power means, Hana. Maybe it's time your little friend learned that lesson. Malik's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. Fighting would accomplish nothing except getting him arrested or worse. But Min-jae's words had done something unexpected. They transformed his fear into absolute determination. Nobody threatened his family. Nobody. I'll go, Malik said quietly. But not because of your threats. Oh, Min-jae raised an eyebrow. Then why? Because Hana asked me to be careful. And I care about what she wants. He looked past Min-jae to meet Hana's eyes. But this conversation isn't over. He walked toward the door. Min-jae's companions didn't move immediately, forcing Malik to squeeze past them. As he did, one of them shoved him just hard enough to make him stumble. They laughed. Malik kept walking. Down the hallway, out of the arts building, across campus to where Chun was waiting by the engineering lab. You look like you've seen a ghost, Chun said. Or maybe fought one? Something like that. Malik pulled out his phone, his mind already working through the problem like an equation that needed solving. Chun, you know everyone on campus, right? All the international student networks. Pretty much. Why? I need information. About the G family. About someone named Min-jae. And I need to know who I can trust if things get dangerous. Chen's expression went serious. Malik, what did you get yourself into? Something I can't walk away from. He looked back at the arts building, where he knew Hana was probably facing consequences for defending him. Someone needs help. Real help. The girl with the bracelet? Yeah. Chun was quiet for a moment, then sighed. Okay, but if we're doing this, we're doing it smart. Come on. There's someone you need to meet. They walked to a small cafe off campus, the kind of place where international students gathered away from Korean eyes. Chun led Malik to a back table where a young woman with short purple hair was typing on a laptop. Malik, this is Yuki. She's from Japan, studies journalism, and knows more about Seoul's underground than anyone I've ever met. Yuki looked up, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. Chun says you're asking about the G family. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Malik admitted, sitting down. What can you tell me? Depends. Why do you want to know? Malik hesitated, then decided honesty was the only option. I met Chairman G's daughter. She's in trouble. trapped by her family, engaged to someone she doesn't want, watched constantly by guards and this guy Min-jae who threatened me and my family. Yuki's expression shifted, something like sympathy crossing her features. Hana, I've seen her around campus. Always alone, always sad, always followed. She closed her laptop. Okay, here's what you need to understand. Chairman Ji-hoon isn't just a businessman. He runs one of the 3 major crime syndicates in Seoul. Money laundering, protection rackets, political corruption, you name it. And Min-jae? He's the son of the second syndicate's boss. The engagement between him and Hana is supposed to unite 2 criminal empires. Can she refuse? In that world? No. Daughters are assets, bargaining chips. If she refuses, it could start a war between the families. People would die. And her father would make sure she understood that every death was her fault. Malik felt sick. So she's just supposed to marry this psychopath? Unless something changes dramatically. Yuki leaned forward. But here's the interesting part. There's been tension in the Ji family lately. Rumors that Chairman Ji is getting old, maybe sick. His grip on power is slipping. The engagement is partially about securing alliances before he's too weak to enforce them. What about Hana? Does she have any power in this? She's the heir. When Ji-hoon dies or steps down, everything goes to her, which means controlling her means controlling one of Seoul's biggest criminal empires. That's why Min-jae wants this marriage so badly. It's not about love. It's about power. Chun whistled low. So Malik just made an enemy of someone trying to take over the Korean Mafia. Great. It's worse than that, Yuki continued. If Min-jae thinks you're a threat to the engagement, he won't just scare you off. He'll eliminate you. Permanently. Malik's phone buzzed. Another message, this time with an attachment. He opened it, his blood running cold. It was a video timestamped from 20 minutes ago. Hana, in what looked like a luxury office, standing before an older man seated behind a massive desk. No sound, but he could see her crying, pleading. The man, Chairman Ji-hoon presumably, barely looked up from his papers. The message below the video read, "She's learning her place. Learn yours." "They're breaking her," Malik said, showing the screen to Chan and Yuki. "Right now." "Then you have a choice," Yuki said quietly. "Walk away and maybe they'll leave you alone. Or fight, knowing you're going against forces that have crushed better prepared people than you." Malik thought about Hana's eyes when she'd taken back the bracelet. The way she defended him to Min-jae despite knowing the cost. Her warning to be careful even when staying silent would have been safer. He thought about his mother's advice to stay out of trouble, about his sisters who needed him to succeed, about the scholarship that was his ticket to a better life. Then he thought about Hana sitting at that piano, playing like she was apologizing for existing. "I'm not walking away," he said, "but I need help. I can't fight them with muscle or money or connections. So I need to be smarter." "Smart how?" Chin asked. "I don't know yet, but there has to be a way. Every system has a weakness. Every power structure has a flaw." Malik looked at Yuki. "You said Chairman Ji's power is slipping. That means he's vulnerable. And if he's vulnerable, maybe the whole system is vulnerable." Yuki studied him for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "Okay, African boy, you've got courage, I'll give you that. What do you need from me?" "Information. Everything you can find about the Ji family's business operations, their enemies, their weak points. And I need to know if there's anyone in that world who might help Hana if we give them a reason to." "That's a tall order, and dangerous for everyone involved." "I know, but will you help?" Yuki glanced at Chun, who nodded. "We're already in this," Chun said. "Might as well go all the way." "All right." Yuki opened her laptop again. "But we do this carefully. One wrong move and we're all dead or deported. Probably both." Batch 2G. As they began planning, Malik's phone buzzed one more time. This message was from Hana's number. Just 3 words that made his heart race. "Don't give up." Somewhere in a mansion across Seoul, in a world of violence and power he barely understood, Hana was still fighting, still hoping, still believing that somehow, impossibly, there might be a way out. Malik looked at his new allies, an unlikely team of international students about to take on one of Seoul's most dangerous crime families, and felt something strange. Not fear, but purpose. "Let's save her," he said. The game had begun. The next 72 hours moved like a chess match played in shadows. Yuki dug through police reports, business filings, and underground forums where Seoul's criminal world whispered its secrets. Chun mobilized the International Student Network, creating a web of eyes across campus that could track Hana's movements and warn Malik when guards were near. And Malik studied not just his engineering coursework, but the architecture of power that held Hana captive. They met in that same cafe each evening, trading information like currency. Yuki discovered that Chairman Ji-hoon had indeed been diagnosed with liver cancer, kept secret from everyone except his inner circle. His desperation to secure the Min-jae marriage made brutal sense now. A dying king trying to ensure his empire's survival through his daughter's sacrifice. But Yuki found something else, buried in a decade-old police report that had been mysteriously sealed. Before becoming chairman, Ji-hoon had a younger brother who tried to leave the organization, tried to build a legitimate life. The brother had died in what was officially ruled a car accident. Unofficially, everyone knew Ji-hoon had ordered it himself. "Family means nothing to these people," Yuki said, showing Malik the report on her encrypted laptop. "Power is everything. If his own brother was expendable, imagine what he'd do to you. Or to Hana if she disobeys," Malik said quietly. For 3 days he didn't see her. The guards had intensified their watch, and Hana stopped coming to the practice rooms. Malik attended his classes, pretended normalcy, while his mind churned through impossible scenarios. Every plan he constructed hit the same wall. He had no money, no connections, no power. He was a foreign student going against an empire. On the 4th day, everything changed. Malik was leaving his thermodynamics lecture when someone grabbed his arm and pulled him into an empty classroom. He spun, ready to fight, and found himself face to face with Hana. She looked exhausted, thinner than before, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "I'm not supposed to be here," she said quickly, breathlessly. "I have maybe 5 minutes before the guards notice I'm not in the library." "Hana, what did he do to you?" "What he always does. Reminded me of my place, my duty, the people who die if I'm selfish." Her hands were shaking. "Malik, you need to leave Korea. Now. Tonight, if possible. My father knows about you. Really knows. He's done a full background check, your scholarship, your family in Lagos, everything. And Min-jae is getting more violent. Yesterday She touched her wrist where a bruise was visible beneath her sleeve. "He wanted to make sure I understood what happens to people who disrespect our families." Malik felt rage flood through him, hot and absolute. "He hurt you. It doesn't matter. It matters to me." His voice was too loud. He forced himself quieter. "Hana, I'm not leaving. I'm gonna help you get out of this. There is no out. Don't you understand? I've been trying to escape since I was 12 years old. Every plan, every hope, every moment of rebellion just makes things worse. My father doesn't lose. Ever. And now he's dying, which makes him more dangerous, not less. He'll burn everything before he lets me destroy his legacy. Then we don't fight him directly." Malik pulled out his phone, showing her what Yuki had compiled. The cancer diagnosis, the sealed police report, the business vulnerabilities. "We make the cage too expensive to maintain. We find leverage. We make him choose between controlling you and protecting his empire." Hana stared at the information, something like hope flickering in her eyes before being extinguished by fear. "You don't know what you're asking. The moment you move against him, he'll retaliate. Your family is being moved." Malik had made the call that morning, using money he'd borrowed from Chen and 3 other international students. "I told my mother there was a safety threat. She's taking my sisters to stay with my uncle in Abuja. Different city, different connections. It'll buy us time." "Time for what?" "Malik, this isn't some engineering problem you can solve with the right equation. No, it's a human problem, and humans can be unpredictable." He took her hands, feeling how cold they were. "Hana, I know I'm just some scholarship student with no power and no connections. I know this is probably going to fail. But I also know that doing nothing means watching you disappear into a marriage that will destroy you. And I can't do that. I won't. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why? Why do you even care? You barely know me. Because when I look at you, I see someone drowning, and everyone around you is just watching. Because you warned me to be careful even when it put you at risk. Because you play piano like it's the only honest thing left in your world. He squeezed her hands gently. Because maybe I'm falling in love with you, and I don't care if that's stupid or dangerous or impossible. The confession hung between them, enormous and terrifying. Hana pulled her hands away, wrapping her arms around herself like she was trying to hold her heart in. You can't love me, she whispered. I'm poison. Everyone who gets close to me gets hurt or worse. Then I guess I'm about to test how well poison works on stubborn Nigerians. Despite everything, she laughed, a broken sound that was half sob. This is insane. Completely. Malik checked the time. You have about 2 minutes before the guards come looking. But before you go, I need to know something. If there was a way out, a real way, would you take it? Even if it meant leaving everything behind. Hana met his eyes, and for the first time since he'd met her, he saw something other than sadness there. He saw determination, decision. Maybe even a spark of the defiance that her father had spent years crushing. Yes, she said. God help me, yes. Then trust me. Just a little longer. Can you do that? She nodded, then quickly kissed his cheek before slipping out of the classroom. Malik stood there, his skin burning where her lips had touched, his heart hammering with equal parts terror and exhilaration. That night, the real plan began to take shape. Yuki had found something extraordinary buried in old business records. Chairman Ji-hoon's empire wasn't as solid as it appeared. He'd been borrowing heavily from international investors to fund expansion, using properties and businesses as collateral. But those businesses were tied to shell corporations that Hana technically owned as part of her inheritance structure, set up for tax purposes years ago. She doesn't control them now, Yuki explained, her fingers flying across her keyboard. But legally, she's the owner, which means if something happened to Ji-hoon's control, if he was suddenly incapacitated or if his legal authority was challenged, she could claim them. And bankrupt him overnight, Malik finished, seeing where this was going. Take away his funding, and his whole power structure collapses. Exactly, but there's a problem. She'd need to assert ownership through legal channels, which means lawyers, court filings, everything public. The moment she tried, he'd know, and he'd have time to stop her or retaliate. Chun leaned back in his chair. Unless he couldn't retaliate, if he was already dealing with a bigger crisis. What kind of crisis? Malik asked. The kind where his rivals think he's weak and vulnerable. Chun grinned. Yuki, you said there are 2 other major syndicates in Seoul, right? What if they all got anonymous tips at the same time about Ji-hoon's cancer, his financial problems, his desperation? What if they suddenly decided this was the perfect time to move against him? Yuki's eyes widened. It would start a war. All 3 syndicates fighting for territory and power while Ji-hoon's too weak to defend properly. And in the chaos, Malik said slowly, Hana could disappear. By the time anyone looked for her, she'd be gone. And Ji-hoon would be too busy fighting for survival to chase her. It was risky. It was probably insane. It would unleash violence across Seoul's underworld and potentially get innocent people hurt. Malik's conscience screamed at him. But then he thought about Hana's bruised wrist, her broken voice saying, I've been trying to escape since I was 12 years old. We need to talk to her first, he said finally. She deserves to know what we're planning and decide if it's worth the cost. Getting a message to Hana proved harder than expected. The guards had intensified their surveillance, and her phone was clearly being monitored. Finally, Chun had an idea. He had a friend who worked in the campus coffee shop where Hana sometimes studied. A note could be slipped into her order. The note was simple: library, 3rd floor, history section, 10 p.m. tonight. Come alone if you can. Malik waited in the dark stacks, surrounded by books on Korean history, watching the clock tick toward 10. Every sound made him jump. If the guards caught them together now, after everything, the consequences would be immediate and brutal. 10:15 came, then 10:30. He was about to give up when he heard footsteps, quick and light. Hana appeared between the shelves, wearing a hooded jacket, looking over her shoulder constantly. I had to drug my guard's coffee. He'll wake up in about 20 minutes thinking he fell asleep. We have to be fast. Malik quickly explained the plan. The financial maneuver, the anonymous tips to rival syndicates, the chaos that would give her a window to escape. He watched her face cycle through shock, fear, and something that might have been savage hope. People will die, she said when he finished. If the syndicates go to war, there will be casualties. Soldiers, maybe civilians caught in the crossfire. I know, and if that's too high a price, we'll find another way. But Hana, I need you to understand. There might not be a clean way out of this. Your father built his empire on violence. Dismantling it will probably require the same. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers touching the charm bracelet that had started all of this. The piano, the birdcage, the lock without a key. My father once told me that power isn't about being loved, it's about being feared, she said finally. He said fear is the only currency that matters because it's the only thing that lasts. And I believed him for so long. I thought I was trapped forever because his fear was too powerful to overcome. She looked up at Malik, and her eyes were hard now, determined. But maybe it's time he learned to be afraid too. So you'll do it? On one condition. We do this smart. We minimize casualties where we can. And if it goes wrong, if people are dying and it becomes too much, we stop. Deal? Deal. Malik held out his hand. She took it, and they shook like they were sealing a business contract rather than planning the destruction of a criminal empire. When do we start? Hana asked. Tomorrow night. Yuki will send the anonymous tips at midnight. By morning, your father will be dealing with threats from every direction. That's when you make your legal move, claim the businesses, crash his funding. Chun has contacts who can get you fake documents and passage to Thailand if you need to run. From there, I figure out who I am when I'm not Chairman Ji-hoon's daughter. She smiled, sad but genuine. I've spent my whole life being his property. I don't even know what freedom looks like. Then I guess we're about to find out together. Hana's watch beeped. Time was up. She moved to leave, then turned back and kissed him. Properly this time, desperate and fierce and tasting like tears and hope. If this works, she whispered against his lips, I'm buying you dinner, somewhere far away from Seoul where nobody knows my name. It's a date. She slipped back into the shadows, and Malik stood there in the dark library, his heart racing, knowing that tomorrow would either bring freedom or catastrophe, probably both. He pulled out his phone and sent a group message to Chun and Yuki. She's in. Execute at midnight tomorrow. The replies came instantly. Chun, God help us all. Yuki, ready when you are. Let's burn this empire down. Malik looked out the library window at Seoul's glittering skyline, at the city that had seemed so full of opportunity 6 months ago, and now held everything he cared about in its dangerous hands. Somewhere in that forest of lights, in a mansion built on blood and fear, Hana was preparing for the biggest gamble of her life. And in a cramped apartment in Sinchon, a scholarship student from Nigeria was about to declare war on one of Asia's most powerful crime families. The next 24 hours would determine if love could survive in a world built on violence, if courage could overcome power, if two people from completely different worlds could somehow find freedom together. Malik walked out of the library into the cold November night, and for the first time since this all began, he wasn't afraid. He was ready. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow the cage would break. Tomorrow they would discover if two hearts could truly chase the light through all those shadows. But tonight Malik allowed himself one moment of hope, one heartbeat of belief that maybe, just maybe, impossible things could happen when people were brave enough to reach for them. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining Malik and Hana on this incredible journey. Their story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is fight for someone who's forgotten how to fight for themselves. What do you think will happen next? Will Malik's plan work? Can Hana truly escape her father's empire? And what price will they pay for their courage? Drop your predictions in the comments below. And if the story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next incredible story. Share this with someone who believes in the power of love against impossible odds. Because sometimes, the most beautiful stories are about ordinary people doing extraordinary things for the ones they love. Until next time, keep chasing the light through the shadows. And remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite it. See you in the next story.